Let me introduce myself, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we got going on today. So I am Amy Stradtmann. I am originally from that beautiful state of Iowa. God sent me not to Brooklyn, New York, because that's where I knew that I was going to be, but instead he sent me to Rockford, Belvedere, Illinois, which is that northern part of the state. I knew in my mind I was going to be there for 3 years, and I was there for over 30 years. So God's got an amazing sense of humor. I have been blessed being in ministry from in that K-12 environment, and so being a Lutheran school teacher, like lots of us are, or administrators, I have taught 2-year-olds all the way up through high school. I've been an administrator at each one of those levels, and so school ministry is pretty awesome, but it comes with its challenges. It's got its joys, and then there are some things that just work. You're not always sure why they work, but you stumble upon it and it just works. And so what I wanted to be able to do today is to create this round table environment so that we can learn from each other. My guess is that you've heard people talk at you for the last few days, and I wanted to be able to shift that just a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to be able to go around. And I know y'all now, but I want you to be able to introduce yourself. Where are you at? What's your school? What's your role at that school? And then as we're going around, we're meeting one another. The next thing I want you to just think about are, what are some of the good things that are happening right now in your ministry? Okay, so we're going to start with the good before we get to the ugly. And then we'll go on to like, okay, but what's something that is uniquely working for our environment? Okay? So, would you go ahead and start?
John Bentrup from Colorado Springs, Rock of Ages Lutheran Church. I'm an elder there. We have a preschool, and 9 months ago we hired a new preschool director. We're in a little bit of a reset mode. One of the good things that I've been blessed to be involved with is I like to garden, and our church has a community garden. So in the summertime, once a week, the preschool kids come up and we get to garden, and then occasionally some of the parents come up to see what's going on, and I've been able to learn their names, develop a little bit of relationship with them. But there's tremendous other opportunities for outreach. But to make that happen, we got to be sure we have a healthy preschool environment as well.
Yep.
Wanting to learn.
In that session, we talked earlier about ways to help our students serve, and that sounds like a beautiful way to teach about serving. Yeah. Okay.
My name is John Fraser. I'm the principal at Epiphany Lutheran School in Houston, Texas. And I would say a success for us has been the last couple of years making sure we have the right people on the bus. And sometimes that's by hiring, and sometimes that's by getting people off the bus. But I think we have a strong team, and that is a blessing for me as administrator, but for our families as well.
Good. Okay.
Jim's brother.
Right?
You sound like him. My brother, he's my brother's pastor. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm Agnes, and I'm not an educator in the sense that you guys are talking. My background's in community regional planning and landscape architecture. I taught at Iowa State. That's my only educator part. But God, 6 years ago, called us to move to be near our daughter when we retired. And we moved to this wonderful community, built a home, and it's full of children. The neighborhood, I don't know how many busloads they take to school every day. But as we got more acquainted with the community and the schools, we saw a great need for Jesus. These kids don't know who Jesus is. So it took a couple of years, we just kept talking. Finally God said, time to move. And so we are working with district now to put a new school in our community.
Okay.
As two old people are biting up a big chunk, but it'll be an adventure, I think.
Yeah.
We want to leave our grandchildren a legacy.
Yep.
And that foundation that Grandpa and Grandma
Yeah.
did for bringing children to Christ.
Yeah.
And so.
I was part of starting a school, a K-5, and so let's take some time to chat about that. Amy?
I'm Amanda Valentine. I am the daycare director of Acorns and Oaks Christian Daycare and the intergenerational outreach coordinator at Perry Lutheran Homes. Our daycare is located in an elderly care facility, so I think that's our major blessing. We get to daily activities with, the kids call them grandmas and grandpas. So we have Bible studies and story times and activities that we do weekly and daily. So we're looking at opening a preschool this fall in the facility, and then big dreams of hopefully opening a micro school on another campus.
Wow. I love that out-of-the-box idea. Yeah.
I'm Nathaniel Tra. I'm from Eustis, Florida, and excuse me, we have at our school it's PK3 through 8th grade, and we've been growing a lot lately, and I think some of it is knowing how to grow responsibly, but yet in a ministry sort of way. And so yeah.
Good. Good. Yes.
Cynthia Fitzsimmons, I'm a church administrator at Trinity Lutheran Church and School in Palm Point, Indiana. I went to that school myself. Paige, my daughter, went to that school, so I've just been a really big advocate of Lutheran schools all along. Probably at Trinity, we have a great preschool program also. We're totally full. So my job, as far as the school, I don't have any really positive, fun jobs. My job is to call parents when they're getting behind on their tuition. That's one
Okay.
of my jobs. So
Yeah.
that's-
A necessary job, but not an easy one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually, there's been some times that I really bond it with parents. I can
Okay.
understand what they're going through. It's not easy to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a commitment to send your kid to a school where you have to pay tuition.
Sure is.
So,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paige Flatlin, I'm actually a director of Christian education, and then I have the joy of working with 6.5 weeks old with our ECC, all the way to our 7th grade teaching religion class in that. Our school, I got there in 2019, and our school was on the brink of closing, and then God blessed us with 80 students like the following year, so that was awesome. I would say now we're kind of leveling out in Minnesota. It's a very left-sided state, so it's always interesting to see what parents are interested in. So yeah, I would say my joy is I get to work with our teaching staff, I get to work with our ECC every day, and I get to be involved in the classroom in pretty much any way I want to be. So just building out relationships with our students and our parents has been really cool
Okay.
the last few years.
Good. Good. Yeah.
I'm Cody Collier, and I'm at St. Paul's Lutheran School in Latimer, Iowa, where I'm the principal and then 6th through 8th grade teacher combined position. A really cool and exciting thing that's going on in Iowa right now, so it's more exterior than interior, is they recently passed the educational savings accounts in Iowa. So the fun, beautiful challenge of reflecting on how we can utilize that in our ministry and be a blessing to those parents who now have the choice of figuring out what's the best education for their kids, and for us to consider how we are providing that best education for their kids.
Good. Glenn, you want to go? Yeah.
My name is Glenn Rollins. I was blessed to teach for 43 years in small and big Lutheran schools around the country. I actually I'm so excited when people talk about small schools, because that's where some amazing ministry happens for me. But I'm currently now working with Synod on our new Set Apart to Serve initiative about church worker recruitment. So there's so much. We're just like 1 or 2 decades behind where we should be with that, so that gives me lots to do.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the challenge for that, but I just love talking schools.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I actually lived in Crown Point, Indiana for a while. So.
Cool. Good. Yeah.
I'm Leah Brumman. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm a now retired homeschool mom who's been doing Lutheran Christian education and particularly classical education, and I've worked in that endeavor as well with an international homeschool organization called Classical Conversations. For many years, and have retired from that, and just I have a heart for Lutheran classical education, and I know that that's a growing interest. It's not for everyone,
Yeah.
but a good friend and I are consulting now with Lutheran schools who are interested in looking at the classical model of education, because I think if you're interested, it can feel overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. And we think that maybe some of our experience could help Lutheran schools take steps in that direction if they're interested.
Thank you.
So, and I went to Lutheran school, and I want that to be available. I just have a real heart for, we're the second largest parochial school system, and people are looking for what we have, but they don't know we exist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we have to be distinctly Lutheran, and
Yeah.
proud of that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Rick Langness. I am a pastor in Broomfield. We have currently a K through 6th grade as well as a Marine Center. And I have not been in a parish with a school before, so this is a very big learning experience for me. But one of the joys, positive things that are going on is we have One, we are moving into a 7th grade this year, this next fall, and then hope to bring an 8th grade on. But the biggest thing is that we're caring for the individual kids. We have 7 in our 4th through 6th grade currently. And some of those have some real special needs. I mean, you know,
Yep.
just emotional things, not so much physical, but just where our world is at. And the ability to care for them in a more one-on-one environment.
Absolutely. Good. Chris, you want to jump in?
Sure. I'm Chrissy Anson. I am an employee of Concordia University in Seward. I am a colleague with Amy. So I'm here, and my husband's here too. So he's an educator, and so I'm just observing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Nikki Angerman. I currently live in Wyckoff, Minnesota. It is not even a dot on the map, but it is there. This is my 2nd year. I came from the San Francisco Bay Area, a school of over 300. My school now is 35 total, K to 8. Great learning experience.
Yeah. When we've talked about the micro schools, I think that really that she's a trendsetter, because that's going to be, I really think, something that we're going to see so much more of as we move forward. Yeah.
I'm Cynthia Spaiva, and I'm the principal at Emmaus Lutheran School in Alhambra, which, if you don't know what that is, it's East LA County, just south of Pasadena. So if you know anything about that, that's where we are. I've been there just over 6 months, so it's still very new to me. COVID really hit LA hard, and so they had to shut down their preschool completely, and so we're rebuilding on that. And the good thing happening there, though, is I'm learning a lot, and we have an amazing staff that just digs in and does whatever it is they need to do. So that's a huge blessing. I came from a very big school,
Okay.
so it's like
Yeah.
I'm still learning what the difference is. You know, I mean, obviously you see differences, but
Yeah.
what ours.
Yeah. And some of the challenges and some of the joys in all of that too, right? Yeah.
Michelle King. I am currently the principal at Emmanuel Lutheran School in Gaylord, Minnesota. Became principal by default. No one would accept the call. And so I moved from my 3rd and 4th grade classroom and went through the SLED program, and am now the principal. I absolutely love it. I would do it without pay if they would let me, but they won't. But COVID hit, and then they needed to double my pay. So, you know, there were a lot of challenges. So it is a very good fit for me. It was just one that I didn't know, and God did. So that was a very good thing. My staff of 6 are all Lutheran, and that is something I had never experienced before in schools that I've served in. And over 50% of our students are Lutheran, and I had never experienced that in the school before as well. So
That's
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
For a community of 3,000.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So that's
Yeah.
a pretty cool.
Yeah.
Positive.
Good.
My name is Harlan Anson. I'm from Staplehurst, Nebraska, which is a town of 240 people. Yeah.
I thought 3,000 was
so it's just outside of Seward. Most people know where that is. Seward is the biggest town I've ever lived in. It was too big, so I moved to Staplehurst. When I first started teaching in Staplehurst 17 years ago, we had about 30 students in our school. Next year's enrollment looks to be about 80. So things are moving in the right direction. God is good. We've been able to build a brand new school building.
Wow.
The school's been in church and school's been in existence for 153 years. So we have a congregation that really supports Christian education. So we're able to build a new school building. Able to, starting next month, we're going to build a brand new gymnasium, a multi-purpose room. That will be done in August. Of those 80 kids, well, of the 60 that are in school right now, they come from 9 different zip codes. And so we really try hard to be intentional to reach out to our big community.
That is a big community.
It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. if anybody knows of any teachers, I need to hire two. If you want to take a break from administration and come teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I'm a fun guy to work with. No, it's a lot of fun stuff. So that's me.
Wow.
Sarah Britton, I'm at Christ the King in Newbury Park, which nobody knows where that is, but it's a township of Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
I know where your town is too. I did the pedal pushers for the city float, but I'm at a standalone preschool. My role is Director of Missions and Ministry, and that is basically a made-up title that the church gave me. I do preschool, and I'm the preschool director, but then I also outreach for the church and use the preschool and kind of bridge those two gaps. Kind of exciting. Joy, we doubled in size. We had about 30 kids. Most kids the school had in 20 years was like 42, and we have 60 now. So we're full. But we also just got a new pastor, so we were vacant through COVID, and that was a challenge. Myself and the other DCE on staff, she's the primary DCE, I'm the other DCE, but have been working through a vacancy for 2 years, so it's been a joy to have a pastor and to take some of those roles and not have to make as many of we're a small church, so we made a lot of bigger decisions than normally
Absolutely.
we would do. So that's been a joy to get to know him and have him on the team.
Good. Would you introduce yourself too,
Sorry,
sir?
I'm late.
Oh, you're fine.
Last session went over. So, I'm Eric Turner. I'm Director of Enrollment at a school called Mayor Lutheran High School. We're about 40 miles west of Minneapolis. I know Mrs. King. Some of the kids at her school, Lord willing, will be at our school someday. So I get to work with her and network with principals and little tiny Lutheran grade schools in the area. We also draw kids from public and charters. And, our high school's been around for 60 years. It's gone through changes. The building has gotten bigger. The makeup of the students has changed. It used to all be Lutheran kids. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a combination of kids who come from different faith backgrounds. And we just tell them that we're going to talk about Jesus. We're going to preach from the Word and required theology for all of our students. And if they're okay with that, even if they're secular humanists, that's good for us. That is a ministry opportunity.
Absolutely.
I'd say about half of our student population, close to half, is not coming from a traditional LCMS Lutheran background. We're like, bring it on. That's a ministry.
That ministry has shifted then throughout the years. My husband is a graduate of Mayor Lutheran. Oh, yes. And so sometime we will have to chat. Yeah.
It's exciting. We'll be about 200 kids next year.
Okay.
If enrollment continues moving the way it is for next fall. We haven't been at that number for quite some time.
Okay.
We're encouraged by that.
Yeah.
And yet there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I found as a principal, regardless of what situation is, I always felt like I was in a silo. And I also felt that, and I don't know if any of you experienced this or not, but I also feel that there was a very small community of people that I could share any of my frustrations with, right? There are many things that are going well in your schools, but there are some challenges. And some of those challenges are very unique to small school ministry or those micro school ministries or those restarts, reimagining. And so I don't want to turn this into an AA session, but I do think that there's some value in what are some of the challenges that you are experiencing right now, because I bet somebody else in the room might be experiencing that or are working through that. And so I'm going to just throw that out there. What are some challenges that your particular ministry is that you're dealing with right now?
Finances and the church feeling that the school is sucking all of the financial life out of the church.
A declining church, but a growing school.
Okay.
So, financially.
Yeah.
Hiring staff, cost of living in our area is very high. And it's hard to pay enough to find staff.
and the increase, starting pay, just like skyrocketed in a year. Where, I mean, I'm hiring people now that are $4 to $5 an hour higher than they were a year ago, just to get somebody in, but then it's not fair to my teachers that have been there for a while.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to advocate for them to get raises to match that, and,
The
you know.
longer you're there, the less you're paid.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go up.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 4 years in a row of minimum wage increase.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing at Mayor Lutheran. I would say the challenge is getting our teachers, in particular, at the lower end of that industry standard, because when they come to work for us, they know that they're not going to make a lot of money, but we want to treat them as well as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that is on the hearts of our leaders in our school.
If I could offer encouragement to consider the homeschool community, I know each of you probably has your own standards and whether they have to be Lutheran or not to be on your staff, and that would vary by school. There are a lot of teachers in homeschooling, and there are a burgeoning number of homeschoolers who are finished. So like homeschooling has been growing, right? When I started, like, not too many people were doing it. A whole bunch of us are finished now, like I am, and looking at what to do next. And they may or may not have education degrees, but they have been teaching their own children, and sometimes working in co-op settings or other settings, or sometimes teaching or tutoring on the side. So for what that's worth, the homeschool environment is burgeoning with moms who are done, and dads sometimes. There are a lot of stay-at-home dads that are now homeschool dads. So think about it, maybe make connections with your homeschool community.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna write that one down. Huh, okay. Yeah.
So, in talking about staffing, I know when I was going to cultural school, they had to be a Concordia graduate certified. Do teachers still have to have that sort of background as a Concordia graduate or not?
Well, let's just put it out there here, all right? And so all of the requests that we get, this much, we are able, because of the field of students, we have this much that we are able to put out there. And so, pardon me? Yeah.
Bill Schranz, who's the placement director at Concordia Stewart.
Yeah, I work with, yeah.
He keeps track of those stats for all 7 of our Concordias. Last year, there were 453 requests for all of our commission ministers, but the majority of those were for teachers. Our Concordias were able to share or to have placed 98. So some of what you're going to look at is what are the state requirements in Iowa to be able to have that. But it's going to be more and more difficult to get those teachers.
And so we need, as schools, to think a little bit more creatively and out of the box, but that is a real challenge. It was very difficult for me I wanted to be able to hire Lutheran educated teachers and have called teachers on staff, and I could not get anyone to move to Northern Illinois. It was,
Kind of like the prime directive, right? We're supposed to go and do that if you use that. It's called Star Trek kind of thing. And it's really difficult because, and over the past 5 years, even more difficult because I think there's that little thing that happened that caused challenges people didn't want to move.
yeah.
Unless they're in California, they were on.
Yeah.
Not that you want to lowball them, but many of those homeschool parents haven't had a second income for a long time, so they may not need as much as someone you're trying to hire from somewhere else. They might just be looking to go, I need to help with the college tuition. If I can help with that right now, or my 2 or 3 that are in college. So again, not that I want to encourage you to lowball them, but they may not need what your other teachers have had because they've maybe been out of the workforce. Some of them also work full-time and homeschool, but many of them have not or just done sideline things.
That's one of the things too that we look at is in Broomfield is one of those places where it is just phenomenal to buy a house. How can you ever afford even rent these days? You're paying $2,000 a month just to have a 2-bedroom apartment if you're single bedroom. So, you know, what we're struggling with is how do you care for the teacher in a way that, you know, because nobody's going to want to move to Bloomfield. So you got to find somebody who's in the area, and typically somebody who's second career doing something anyway that they can come in. So going back to your question, you know, we just look at what can we get to that state certified, and maybe even then just help them to grow in that particular place.
Mm-hmm.
This might be an encouragement too. At our school, we have 2 call flies. So we had somebody who actually was a Lutheran. They went through the program, which was super easy for her, and then she'll start the sled program too, I think, or has started it. But we have 2 who will pretty much get a call here in the next week or 2. So that's another opportunity or another way to just kind of help some of that Lutheranness, and then they get rostered too, which is helpful. But even just looking at your own demographics or who's even in your building who is already Lutheran can be helpful.
Well, we don't have anything yet, but I'm curious.
And that's the key word is yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get there hopefully in the next 2 years, but I'm trying to figure out the staffing thing because, like I said, it used to be you had to be a Concordia graduate.
Yep.
And I know some of those stats, and then you brought up homeschool parents, which is an awesome idea. But is that
And
I'm
newly
gonna use the word
retired people
allowable.
who retire.
I was going to say public school retired teachers are,
And then they're just
yes.
like, oh, I really don't think that I like this. You know, and if they have a heart for ministry and they have been an educator, those are perfect people because they come with experience. You don't have to worry about what they're going to do in a classroom.
Yeah.
Because they already know what they're doing.
Yeah. So that NLSA, that National Lutheran School Association, that's where you get your accreditation from. And so one of the expectations for that is that you have state certified teachers. Another expectation is that you have all called teachers, and that is not realistic. So that colloquy process is something, but I have found that it can be very hard to motivate my staff to do that because you're going back to school. Right? And so I wish that we could have had some type of financial carrot.
They do have a better way of doing it now.
Okay.
They have a scholarship that goes along with it, and I think, unless they've changed it, they have it, I guess, on your pace. So it wasn't like an 8-week class.
Got it.
Class.
Okay.
It was like, here's the first class.
Is this colloquy you're talking about? It's over several months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our teacher started in September maybe, or October, and then like I said, she just wrapped up, I think, in January.
Darn.
Well, in some districts, like PSD has scholarships for colloquy.
Okay.
For
Okay.
teachers.
Okay.
The other thing I'll say about hiring teachers that maybe are not sonically trained. Every state is different. Nebraska is very strict as the Department of Education of hiring teachers. You have to have, I think it's 90% of your teachers have been teaching in their
Discipline?
certification.
Okay.
Certified area, and when you only have 6 teachers, that's really hard to get to 90%. You got to cut one in half. It doesn't work. So it makes it a little challenging sometimes. We're blessed to have all of our staff members are Lutheran, LCMS Lutheran members of our congregation. They're not all rostered, but I think that's a huge thing too. Just they're part of your church. The kids see them there every Sunday. That's big.
That's huge. Yeah.
This is not going to be a popular statement, so I'll just say that ahead of
That's
time.
fair.
And I am in support of accreditation, so don't hear me wrong. The next generation doesn't care about accreditation. I'm not saying that means you should ditch it. I'm not saying that doesn't mean you should look for great teachers. But the youngest generation, right, my kids and their kids, they don't care about that. And it doesn't mean they're not looking for a quality place. They just don't use that as a benchmark like at least some of us do. So for what that's worth, I think we have to realize our market so that when you're working with unique factors, you figure out what really you have to fit into and what you don't.
Okay. Glenn, what were you going to say?
Just to go along with that in a more challenging way is, for example, in the state of Illinois, if you did not have accreditation, and I was at the high school level most of the time, I was not allowed to have my school participate in activities that were kind of like important for high school, like sports and those things. So you have to know
There are
that
factors.
that may work. Probably that would work at a grade school level far easier than at a high school level where you have the interscholastic sports.
And I don't know if, and again, every state is different too.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
so there's the, National Lutheran School Accreditation,
Mhm.
and then there's, state.
Yes.
So like the state of Nebraska, you can be an accredited school, or you can be an approved school, or you can be an exempt school.
Hmm.
Most Lutheran schools in the state of Nebraska are approved schools. I think only the high schools in the state of Nebraska actually go through the Nebraska Department of Education.
Okay.
They call it's Rule 10, Rule 14, and then there's another one. I don't know what it is, but
Okay.
But yeah, and it's just, most everybody is Rule 14. And it's an approved school through the department.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah,
I
Glenn.
want to add one more thing. We had talked about finding those teachers, and I was just talking with Sean Martins, who is the district ed exec for Minnesota South District, and he said a program that Minnesota South District has been working on is to be encouraging of those teachers in congregations who maybe now at this point, similar to what you're talking about here a little bit, except that they're already certified, but they're there, and maybe you can spend some time talking with them if they're in public, and they might, with what's going on in the public world, think, oh, maybe this is a time, so they can still do that vocation, that love that they have of teaching. So there may be some teachers in several of the congregations around, and at this maybe season in their life, a little bit past taking care of the kids, but they're able to make that financial change from what public schools can pay versus what we can pay. But Minnesota South is putting a program together where Sean is going out. He was out of two large congregations in Woodbury and in St. Michael's in Bloomington to talk and got some teachers who are interested where they can make that connection over, and they don't have to worry about being certified because they are.
Right.
And then they can go through colloquy if they want. So there may be some of those people that are out there, and we're going to actually, at Sud Park Facility, we're going to start to trumpet that. That's why I like to come to these things. Man, there are great ideas out there, and then we're going to start to share that around the country. It just depends on your state, though.
I have a perfect example. So, right now we have a part-time teacher, because I teach part-time, but next year we're switching that around. But so, member of our congregation, longtime member of our congregation, was a middle school public school teacher in Seward. She retired 3 years ago. After she retired, she substitute taught only for our school. Like that was the only school she subbed in. So the kids all got to know her. Fast forward a couple years, we needed to hire a part-time teacher. She was a no-brainer if it worked for her, right? All the kids knew her, and she just loves it. And so next year, that part-time position is going away, which she's okay with because she's retired. But she's like, I'm coming back. Like I'm volunteering my time. I don't know exactly what it is, but she's gonna do something just because she wants to be there. Like that's
even that.
So finding
from a
people-
subbing way, that's great because that was a challenge.
Oh,
for
finding
some.
subs is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another avenue to consider is trying to connect, COVID did a wonderful job of eliminating teachers out of the public system. Because
That's a great spin.
As numbers go down, there's going to be more responsibility.
and it could be that now's the time, after being 2 or 3 years out of teaching, they're getting back to saying, I want to get back to doing it. But it's finding, that's the
Right.
biggest thing is where are they? But I think if you start looking around, putting some feelers out, you might find some good educators that are ready to get back into teaching again. And then you have to look at, okay, is this now a witness opportunity to bring them into faith?
Right.
Or are they already there and
Right.
just getting them?
And then
Right.
you got to sort of those costs, housing,
Yeah.
Colorado likes to charge.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
found them in like the local, now I'm preschool, but and California does have educational requirements for to work in a preschool. But the local moms group, I lamented to the local moms group, like, I'm trying to, does anybody, other small business owners, how are you hiring staff? Because I'm having the hardest time. And like 6 women, like, well, I'd work for you. Like, I'd be interested in a preschool, like a Christian school. So that was, normally I do Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all of that, but that was a place where I actually got kind of bouncing off your idea a little bit. of like asking, because I can't ask, it's against the rules to ask for, like, does anybody want a job? Like, you can't do that in the local one. But I was asking other people that had small businesses, how are you hiring? And then I got the
Okay,
kind
so the
of
way that you phrased that.
response. Now you have to, to be in the moms group, you have to be, well, you don't have to be a mom because I'm not, but they let me in anyway.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't let dads in.
We see in our homeschool groups postings for friends all the time.
Yeah.
My friend in their business would love to hire some homeschoolers. My friend is, so
Okay.
you don't even have to always be in the groups. You can feed them the information and they can post it for you and then forward it or provide your contact info.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's continue to shift over to what is working for you. Will you share more of what your preschool? I think that is such a unique, out of the box opportunity, and it's such a very forward thinking. Would you start us off with that? Okay, so can you tell them? Yeah.
So we're a mission of our church. We're Christ Lutheran Church in Boughton, and they saw the need for daycare in our community. And so our church is in Boughton, which is just a few miles away from Perry. And our senior pastor is the CEO of Perry Lutheran Homes. And so as everybody's talking about opening this daycare and what it's going to look like, they were planning on having it at the church. And then Pastor Max is kind of like, well, it's kind of crazy. Like, Boughton's really small and we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like, why wouldn't we do it at PLH? So then everybody was like, yeah, let's do that. And so that's kind of how it happened. So they renovated the basement, and we're down in the basement. And then we just are able to go up and daily. And it's kind of cool too, because so we have planned activities and planned times, but then we have 2 dementia and Alzheimer neighborhoods in the facility. And so sometimes when one of the grandmas or grandpas are just really having an off day or really upset, they'll call me and be like, hey Mandy, will you bring up a baby? Like, because it's amazing to see how like they can go from, being very angry and upset and like not wanting to do anything, and then you put a baby in front of them and everything changes. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I get all choked up sometimes, but a lot of God moments, you see Jesus everywhere there. And then we acquired a different facility. It used to be Sonic Home. It's just a few miles down the road from our current one. And so we are trying to figure out how we can do something there too. So that's our goal, is to build another daycare, a micro school, something at that campus, so then we can have intergenerational everywhere.
I so love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was an article about what you're doing, some group. Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Maybe, probably.
My husband brought it up. He said, "Look at it." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that you said what's going well.
Yeah.
The growth of the number of families that we're connecting with that 2-3 years ago would not have looked at a Christian school, would not have looked at, being Lutheran identified in a community that's not super Lutheran is not really a thing. But the fact that like families are looking at us, and I saw a huge switch from pre-pandemic. We had a lot of families who worked in our community but didn't live in our community. But because they were commuting into the area, they put their kids close to where they worked versus close to where they lived. And that has completely flipped. And so now I call it the stroller parade, because all the parents that are still working from home, their morning routine is to walk their kid to school that's 4 or 5 blocks from the school. They're walking into the school and then going home, working their day, and then they're coming and picking up their kids at the end of the day. And so we have about 10 to 15 strollers that come up our hill every day. And but it's been so much fun because like part of my second role was to try to build community with the young families, and that was really hard to do when they lived in Camarillo, and the other side of Thousand Oaks or lived in Simi or Moore Park. That so many of the families now live in the neighborhood surrounding the church, and it kind of goes back to that old school parish model. Like our church is in the middle of the community again, and that we can then, when we're trying to build community, when we're trying to, you know, equip and engage our families, like it's not as much of a difficulty when they're not driving in from 30, 40 miles away, that they're living in. It's not impossible, but to have more families. And we also had a major demographic change in our community where a lot of the older people that lived in California left and sold their house for a huge amount of money and went to Texas and Minnesota and Iowa and Arizona and everywhere else. So we had a lot of young families move in. So that's been a lot of fun to see so many, to go from having not a lot of kids in the grocery store to like the grocery store is full of kids.
So the demographics changing
Yeah.
quite a bit, yeah.
I think for us, it's getting those new families in, getting families that would not have considered us 5 years ago. Because, like I said before, they didn't come from that traditional LCMS grade school route. And they saw how we handled COVID. We were open during COVID. We had school on campus 5 days a week. And yes, we had masks on and different adjustments we had to make. It wasn't fun, but we did it. And I think families respected us and worked that out. But hey, they're still going to do this on campus. That has led to more residuals every year since then. Now, there are a different set of issues that come along with getting kids from different funnels.
Yeah.
But that's been encouraging.
Yeah.
Some of the, like, just so you say, some of the great things that are happening bring about challenges as well. And you just have to be ready for that when they come. But I think one of the things like that we're very intentional about is sometimes it's just logistics of the way your school is set up and things like that. Like preschool is its own thing, and then K-8 is its own thing. Everything that we do in our school is everybody. Like we are one school. Our preschool kids are with the 8th graders reading books. They're their chapel buddies. My daughter's a 7th grader. Every day when we have chapel on Wednesdays, her little preschool chapel buddy is sitting right on her lap. There's an empty chair next to her she's supposed to be sitting in, but she's sitting right there on her lap. And she just, when she walks into school, she just loves her, adores her, right? So we do that, just intentional things about that. Being intentional about being out in the community. So again, I told you, Staplers is 240 people. We do I mean, a lot of you guys do this stuff too, but like a fall festival trunk or treat thing, and we involve all the community things, so which isn't very many, right? It's the school, the church and school, the women's club, the men's club, the fire department, and there's a veterinary clinic in town. That's pretty much it, right? So those 5 things all got together and made this whole big day. We had like 700 people in town that day. It was ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
We made, I think we made like 350 hamburgers and 350 hot dogs. Ran out of all of them. I got a member of our congregation. He's actually one of my teacher's husbands who loves to brew beer. So he brewed, I think, 3 kegs of beer. We gave little things of beer to the parents away. He made root beer and grape pop and everything else. So he was on tap with those. And he's wearing a lederhosen and polka band. But they remember that. And then like families come back, and I've had families that have like inquired about the school just because. Oh yeah, you're the school that had you had the guy giving away beer. Yeah, that was us. Yeah. But it was. I mean, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
It was a fun thing. So.
Yeah.
One of the experiences I've had in the past was church and school divisions. We're us, we're us, you're them, kind of stuff. And one of the great things that I've been able to see at Beautiful Savior is we're not Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church, we're Beautiful Savior Lutheran School. We're just Beautiful Savior Lutheran. It's been great to see us coming together now, and we just do this. school is part of what we are, you know. And I think with that then is the great, again, to see the one-on-one care. We were open through COVID too, and that has been a great positive for families to say they get, you know, personal attention. You know, they're not doing it over the internet or computers. They have someone in their face that they can talk to, and so forth. And just that whole attitude of we're just here to care for people. So as a congregation, as a school, you know, to get involved. And I see that as a great starting point again for building for the future.
How did you get to that place where the school and the church were on the same page?
I served almost 3 years as their vacancy pastor.
Okay.
They call me. And there's a lot of freedom being a vacancy pastor.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want,
Yeah.
Yep.
I can always live there. That's being thrown out of 2 congregations before. But again, that, you know, getting one, I God primed them. That's what I can say. It wasn't anything I did, but I also was able to pick up on where they were and say, you know, if we're going to have a school, if we're going to be a growing congregation,